Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Choco Talk on DRR series today. My name is Satbek Sarjanov. I am the member of the Korean and which is Central Asian Youth by Alliance chapter. And today I'm going to be moderator of such very first Choco Talk on DRR series. Today we're going to discuss such interesting topic like community-based disaster risk reduction with the three interesting members of CRRP. It's Confederation of Risk Reduction Professionals in India. So today we have Tanmay Gound, the core team member of Mili Juli project, lead of CCRP. And Tanmay is a professional with a background of chemical engineering and postgrad in disaster management from the Tata University Institute of Mumbai. And he has good experience in working with government organization. Currently, he is working as research associate with Gujarat Institute of Disaster Management. That may also marginally involved in capacity building of youth and young professionals who have keen in DRM, and he has 4+ experience in volunteerism, working for humanitarian assistance. Our second guest and second speaker today gonna be the Dr. Ms. Saran Prakash, also professional and team member of Project Mili Juli. She is graduate Masters of Disaster Management with her concentration on conflicts, peace and development from Jamssetji Tata School of Disaster Studies. She also holds a bachelor degree in political science from University of Delhi. She is currently a doctoral scholar at Department of Sociology and Political Science of Dayalbagh Educational Institute. And her goal is to be part of the work spreading knowledge and education, as well as enhance her overall skills through the research. And our third guest and third speaker gonna be the Rishabh Goenka. He's inspired architect. He is actually the student of the Bachelor Architecture from Royal School of Architecture, Guwahati, Assam. He holds strong passion and interest in sustainable ways and believes that sustainable architecture can play major role towards a safer and resilient communities. So nice to meet you again. This is our speaker for today discussion. Before we begin, let me give some instructions for the participants in the Zoom. So please turn off your video and mute your mic during our discussion session, because it will just disturb our discussion. Then we will start with a small video after the instructions, and there will be presentation and Q&A session. We will answer some questions from you. That's why please leave your questions in chat box. Any comments, anything, and if you want to have certificate, we will share the link in the chat box. So compile and you have one certificate. And last but not least, please don't forget to grab chocolate bar, M&M, everything that chocolate related that can create this relatable chocolate atmosphere around you, and just lay back in the webinar, because I have my chocolate bar with me today, and it means I'm ready. So let's get started. And first, let's have a look at a video. One of my colleagues will show the Mili Juli journey. So let's get started. Please, colleagues, can you play the video for our participants? Thank you so much, colleagues. I really like the video. Today, also, before we start and enjoy our presentation, we have Chair of Inspire Alliance, Mr. Pradit Hatida from Nepal. Please, Mr. Pradit, can you say something about and maybe tell us the wishes? And are you here? Can you see us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. You're looking great. And thank you for beginning such a good moderation. Amazing. I'm very proud that, this is happening. I'm having a issue with my internet, so I'll keep my video off. First of all, thank you very much for the team for starting this wonderful session. And it's very interesting, the name itself, Chocolate Talk. And very, interested to know more from the speakers as well. I know Tanmay very well. He's a fantastic guy, so I would love to hear his presentation. We also have Prakash, Saran, and I'm so glad that they both are from Tata Institute of Social Science, where I also studied and also researched. Amazing. And I have like a couple of things to share regarding this presentation. So this name probably for many of you is a very common name who are joining from Nepal. The term Mili Juli is so much interesting terminology. So I'm so inspired by the name itself. So it gives the meaning of coordination, participation, and so much, it's togetherness. It's such a pure feeling of that is so important in the work that we are doing. And also looking at the that introductory video, so that also gives me a sense of vibe, like how much effort the team has given for the risk communication and also understanding the local perspective, local, stories from the ground. And this is such an inspiring beginning, I would say. So thank you so much, especially to the team from Mili Juli, CRRP, I guess. And this is the amazing things. I think we should take it further as well. So we should take it to the bigger forums and then definitely to different countries as well. So this is such an interesting thing. I'll be here for a few moments of time. So I don't have much more to explain right now. Everyone is waiting for the presentation. So my best wishes for this beginning, wonderful beginning. Thanks to Rahama, thanks to everyone. And I also look forward to stay as much as I can and also, to learn from this, and definitely gonna watch this recorded video after a while. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pradit, for your words. And so let's begin. Today we have presentation from CRRP about Mili Juli project. And this project aims to use examples of from communities across the state of Assam to foster the idea that community-based disaster risk management and generate ways of dealing with risks of disasters on community level, and answer questions like how heritage, cultural heritage, can be seen as collective consciousness of the community and leveraged to build resilience. So, Sister P, floor is yours. Please continue.
Thank you, Sadbek, and hi Pradeep. Great to see you again. I'll just share my screen. Hope my screen is visible to everyone. Yes. Just a second. So, good afternoon, everyone, and namaste from India. Today's topic for the first ever DRR Chocolate Talk is CBDRR. And here CRRP India would like to share our experiences from the project of Mili Juli. Taking inspiration from Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, Clause 19D, which states that disaster risk reduction is everybody's business and no one can be left out or behind. With this motto, we try to achieve end goal from this project. So the Mili Juli has been considered within the framework of ICROM's flagship program on first aid and resilience for cultural heritage in times of crisis, and its capacity building program on culture cannot wait, heritage for peace and resilience, supported by Swedish Postcode Foundation and completed by Risk Resilience Institute with the support of CRRP India. The primary objective of this project is to incorporate the dimension of cultural heritage in approaches of CBDRM and establish that CBDRM is not merely limited to disaster response. We often talk about the cultural heritage is all about preserving structures and monuments, but we largely fail to address the culture as a collective cultural consciousness of community. During this project, we try to get an idea of this idea of communities' understanding about the risk and their indigenous and traditional knowledge to take measures against it. So we started this project a year back, where the pandemic has already hit the world. Considering the pandemic situation, it was a major challenge in front of the team and how to execute this project. Hence, involved members have explored all the possibilities of utilizing available resources and see how can we implement the project. As a result, we realized that we have an extended arm in Assam, which is a prominent place and rich with the culture and traditions in Northeast India, where CRRP could possibly use their established work. So with this project, we also try to break the contemporary understanding of CBDRR, or let's say CBDRM, which is not only limited to rural areas. This project has a good blend of rural and urban case studies. We adopted a unique approach to deliver this project. We often talk about providing opportunities and platform to the youth. But when time comes for actual hand-on experience, everyone runs towards the experts. Like the meme says here, how we will create the experts without providing them opportunities. Hence, we did not hire any experts from the field, and we believe in young ideas and tried to establish and explore them. For Mili Juli, we had a three-tier approach with 3 mentors who work for shaping this project with the help of 4 working professionals who were continuously in contact with interns and guided them to execute the project. During the initial days, we had realized that majority of our team does not belong to the field of disaster risk management. Hence, we orient them during the ongoing project, and in the end, the result was very overwhelming. We have documented these videos, and surely we will share these in chat box. So the outcome of this project was documented in one handbook, but the handbook is a bit different from the contemporary one, a classic one. So handbook is nothing but a book that contains instructions or advice on how to do something, or the most important and useful information about the project. But in Mili Juli, we have creatively put up all the required information in pictorial format. If you can check our cover page, let me just show you. Just a second. Here you can see how the community is responding to routine calamities each and every year. Flood is very prominent and routine hazard which strikes Assam every year. But their indigenous knowledge and systemic capacities help them to overcome through this situation every year. So presenting something about this handbook, I'll ask Saran to join this discussion. Saran, please.
Yes, Tanmay, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Greetings to one and all. My name is Saran Prakash. It was an honor for me to be a part of this unique project with a team of young professionals from different academic backgrounds. I will be elaborating a bit more on what Tanmay has just shared. Our project, Mili Juli, was basically thematic upon community-based disaster risk management, the aim of which is to highlight the flexibility and innovation required for community-based initiatives. It aimed to underscore the need for greater engagement with people and a better understanding of their risks and resources. The thing is that communities have critical knowledge, experience, and capacities with regards to building resilience and have, over the decades, developed innovative approaches to reducing the everyday risks that they face. However, these community-based approaches are rarely scaled out, let alone being systematically embedded within national policies and practices. Until now, the tendency of CBDRM initiatives and measures has been seen to be located in rural areas largely. Initially, we also focused our efforts in identifying rural places where our project could have been carried out. Incidentally, due to COVID-19 imposed restrictions, there was no way that we could visit rural spaces for our data collection via personal interviews, which could have yielded us the platform for elaborate conversations. That was when we thought, why do we have to limit our reach to rural areas every time? While that is needed, maybe we can consider carrying out CBDRM in urban space, a first of its kind initiative. Reaching out to people in person was still a challenge. Tanmay, next slide, please. So our saviors in that scenario were our interns, their friends, their families, and their dear ones who hold testimony to the ages and stages of development of Assam in its rural and urban phases both. So even before we set out on work with our tools, our first step was knowledge sharing. Two members of our team, myself and Tanmay, we conducted a half-day session on the fundamentals of disaster studies so that all the members of the team could be on the same page with regard to our understanding of the language and terminology. Next slide, please. So the next step was ruling out what could not be done and beginning with what could be done. We prepared an interview guide to carry out telephonic interviews with those residents of rural areas of Assam whom we could reach out to. And as mentioned earlier, the dear ones of our interns from the state, and not limiting ourselves only to telephonic interviews and using the best resources at hand, we also conducted focused group discussions or FGDs among all the interns and professionals of the team. And we divided them into two groups. This helped us unearth insider views of those who have been staying in the state of Assam and have been witnessing or experiencing the risks that surround them. We could manage to unveil the conflicting as well as converging points of views. Next slide, please. The result of those activities was a rich collection of elaboration on the indigenous practices in two forms, a comic and a narrative. The purpose of this division was to be able to reach out with our learning and our message to diverse sections of people, like government officials, academicians, and the general public with all levels of academic backgrounds. On this note, I must mention here that our narratives, the glimpses of which are put up here, are a mixture of general narration of the case or the practice. And we tried to weave the terms of DRR and disaster studies intricately into them, vary of not sounding too academic or too divorced from the focus of the larger theme either. Next slide, please. And in all this, as I had mentioned, our interns had been the most instrumental and cooperative. I won't be exaggerating if I say that they were a major support system because of which we could carry out this project remotely in COVID times without exposing anyone to the risk of infection. Next slide. So none of these interns actually had any background of disaster studies. And despite that, they were all very adaptive and open to understanding with their rather quick acumen, while also contributing significantly with their skill set. Those who could meet at one place worked together to save time and meet the targeted deadlines. And those who joined us later at a later stage also quickly picked up the momentum, especially when it came to pacing up with the comic part of the handbook. And on this note, I would request Rishabh to walk us all through the structure of the handbook of Mili Juli, which is the final outcome of our efforts.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Yes. Hello, I'm Rishabh Goenka. Being one of the 11 student interns and having little to no prior understanding about DRR, as rightly mentioned by the previous speakers, this initiative has surely been a knowledge enriching experience for all the interns. So could you move to the next slide? So coming to the structure of the handbook and focusing mainly on the comic section, this section is basically meant to grab the attention of the readers through graphics. The comic consists of 3 characters, as we can see on the screen, and they take the readers through 10 different stories. And since this handbook is based on DRR, the characters have been given unique backgrounds by virtue of which they make the readers have a clearer understanding of the different communities of Assam and their cultures, which in turn are the prime reason behind the reduction of region-specific disaster risks. So on the left-hand side, the first character, Lakshmi, she's a social worker and research scholar from Guwahati, Assam. She's an expert in indigenous communities of Assam and their practices. The second character, Kanyeth. So Kanyeth is a city dweller in his mid-20s and is a DRR professional and is pursuing his PhD. The third character on the right-hand side, Jibon, is born and brought up in Guwahati, Assam, and is saturated with regionalist emotions. He is an entrepreneur and is actively involved in relief activities in the state. Next slide, please, sir. So here, to give a glimpse of the comic section, the introduction page here on the right-hand side, it stars the character Kanyeth, as we can see the image, who is flying in knots over the lush greens and blues of the city of Guwahati. And the city of Guwahati is also known as the gateway to Northeast India. The comic runs in a storyline where the characters travel to different cities, towns, and districts of Assam and encounter their cultural heritage. So next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the comic section contains 10 stories with their unique taste of cultural heritage and their contribution to DRR. The first story about the wetlands of Nagaon offers how people take care of the wetlands as their own property, and in return, how these wetlands save the communities from the risk of disasters, such as the floods. The second story, as we can see, the black rice of Gwalpara, shows how people and farmers of Gwalpara grow a different variety of rice known as the black rice, which even has a higher nutritional value than what we regularly have, the white rice. And this type of black rice variety can be grown even in low to moderate flood levels, as it has a higher stem height, which is almost like 5 to 6.5 feet. And if we compare that with the general white rice stem, it is about 3 to 4 feet in height. So what do we actually learn from the black rice story of Gwalpada is that even in times of flood, when communities run out of food and have agricultural loss, black rice actually becomes an asset and a stable source of food for the communities. Carrying on, the remaining stories focus on such unique practices of the communities. And these are not just 10 stories to mention, but how can these help other communities to replicate and to sustainably utilize the available resources? These stories, rather than projecting solutions to problems, pave way for further research and thought on such communities and their practices. So next slide, please. So along the course of this handbook, what we have seen is that interestingly, these communities, through their culture and practices, reflect their contribution to the SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals. While they are quite unknown and alien to the concept of Sustainable Development Goals itself. For example, if I take one story out of the 10, it was on ecotourism of Joramukhuria village in Chandubi. The story highlights how the village dwellers started restoring their land from a history of deforestation. And not only it helped reduce soil erosion from floods in the process, but they were also successfully able to develop ecotourism around their village. So to say, though these SDGs were adopted in the year 2015, but such communities through their age-long practices have already been contributing to sustainable development. Through ecotourism story, the ecotourism story actually touches almost all the 17 SDGs, right from providing livelihood to gender equality in work, maintenance of wetlands and natural resources, and so on. Similarly, all other communities through their practices, as mentioned in the handbook, contribute to most of the goals of the SDGs, as the reader would understand after going through them. So next slide, please. So last but not the least, I would like to take this opportunity and conclude by thanking each and everyone involved in this initiative, both actively and passively, the co-members, the professionals, and all the interns. And on behalf of all the interns, I would like to thank the core team and the professionals for guiding us in all the steps of this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, dear speakers Tanmay, Saran, Rishabh, for such interesting presentations. I'm really pleased to be here and just learn about Mili Juli more from perspective of core team. From presentation, I just want to make some remarks. The Tanmay said that sometimes we more focus on technology response and not communities. And that's such a great remark because sometimes we bring, not we bring, some institutional organizations bring policies, methods, but they don't just take into account the community's needs. Also, there were I like this Marvel scene about experts, how we're gonna have experts is we don't just let them have learn, and the idea of the engaged people the engaged people who are not DRM directly. For example, when I first heard it, I was had some sort of jealousy feeling because why it's not happening in Kazakhstan, for example, in Central Asia. Why not me like this? And from Saran's presentation, she said that communities have critical knowledge regarding risks, but some policies disempower people and made them more vulnerable. It's, for my perspective, it's really also relatable to Kazakhstan itself. We make such things, and we not the people, like the government, some governmental organization made something that are actually hurting communities. And from Rishabh about their structure, actual structure quite eye-catching. I was feeling not just reading documentation, but how reported these characters. They were also part of debates. about what is good, what is bad, the explanation, and thank you so much for telling about this. And I think it's time to move to the questions if we have from participants. Let's see. There's a question, I think. Let me see. Oh my god, sorry. I have questions from. Like to know more how will the working community join comic development. Okay, there is a question. How do you plan to disseminate this comic series? Do you have any plans to produce in different languages, at least within communities, countries, or used by alliance? Who can answer to this question? You can also see the questions in chat box. Maybe Mr. Tanmay, how do you think?
Sorry, I just missed that question. Which one you are talking about?
The last one, probably from Lishe. How do you plan to disseminate this comic series? Do you have any plans to produce in different languages, for example, between used by countries?
Yeah, not as of now, because this particular project has completed like past 6 to 8 months ago, but we haven't thought about publishing it in multiple languages. But let's see how it works. I don't know if that's because we are no expert in this field. Like we just tried and explore the opportunities, like if that is working or not. But fortunately it's getting appreciated over the globe, because ICROM also appreciated the effort and they also want to work with us in future. So let's see how it goes. For translation, we actually haven't thought about it, but let's see.
Okay, there's also one question probably. Would like to know more on how you elaborate working with community on telling story on DRR through drawing and comic development. So can anyone of speakers answer the question? Is before the plan of dissemination? Can you hear me? Maybe Ms. Saran can answer. Would you like to know about, or maybe I think I also have some questions and maybe we can answer them.
Sadek, should I try to answer this question before you?
Okay. If you can, I'll be very happy.
So if I have understood it correctly, the question is about what is our purpose of this comic and drawing, right? Is that
no? How to probably how to make people to just read, or for example, I don't know. Maybe the purpose is how people accepted this idea of comic, for example, from maybe in India or Indian communities.
So as of now, we have had one major presentation on the platform of understanding risk of this handbook where we launched it. And on that platform, it was appreciated. And this is a second major presentation. After this, we will be reaching out to the communities with whom we interviewed. So that is when we'll be knowing about what their response would be. But during the process of our interviews and the data collection, I think it was appreciated because our understanding was that not everyone may be interested in reading lengthy narratives which may sound academic. So that was the reason why we took up a graphical and a comic representation. So the idea was initially appreciated. Now that this handbook has been launched officially, we have to see how it will be received. We hope it is received well.
I think it will be received not just it's quite interesting. It's like bestseller for me, for example, for such kind reader like me, who just sometimes I'm reading some handbooks or the stories and just like, oh, that's quite difficult. I will gonna live it for some days, but this one I lived like in 2 hours.
Yeah,
it was so easy, so interesting, so catchy. Okay, so I prepared some questions because I was reading it. Yes.
Yeah, adding to Saran's point, actually this handbook has a very creative thing. Like you can see there are three aspects. If a person is coming from academic background, they will get information. But if one just want to read a comic or anything, like just a reader, they will get to read the narratives of this handbook. And those who don't want to read at all, they have the graphics. They can relate the stories and they can
Yeah.
see the graphics. Yeah, that was a different approach we took, and I don't know, like it's up to the audience how they will receive it and the feedback we get.
I think it's a win-win technique.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's worked. For me, I don't know about other people. For me, it worked. Okay, I prepared a question because I was reading and then checking the information, and I have first question for Rishabh. So, Rishabh, can you tell me what kind of examples of risk-informed planning you have found during the Mili Juli project? Because I know so you are intern. It would be interesting from your point to know something.
So thank you, sir, for the question. So as I'd mentioned in my presentation, during my presentation, that these indigenous communities have a unique understanding of their environment, and they prepare themselves way ahead of any force in disaster or hazard, to say, by their natural prediction mechanism. And hence, Mili Juli as a project has been all about such communities where they reduce the risk by better preparedness and coping. So we are all familiar with the sophisticated technologies and equipments that are available to us for a prediction mechanism of disasters, but these communities don't have such access. And for them, all they have are some natural prediction mechanisms. So to mention about a few of risk-informed planning that I've come across during this project would be the two projects of Chad area of Barpeta and the Changhars of Majuli. So as we know that Majuli is the largest riverine island in the world. And to begin with a short background, the Brahmaputra River often floods during the monsoon season, as Tanmay sir had mentioned. And it often is termed as catastrophic because of the life and property it destroys and the resultant suffering it causes each year. So in the absence of any participatory environmental decision-making platform, the communities along the river live under the shadow of perpetual catastrophic risk. And hence to overcome these risks, for example, the people of Chad areas or of Majuli have developed this age-long construction technique to build houses on raised earthen heaps or on stilts, which is known as changhar locally. And it is built such as the houses are raised to a level so that the water cannot reach inside their houses, or the water cannot enter these houses. So these are some of the examples of risk-informed planning that I came across during the Mili Juli project.
Oh, thank you so much. I actually also, when I first heard this thing, I was like, oh, maybe in my culture also we have. Thank you so much for your answer. And I want to ask next question from Saran. I heard from the interviews that I found in internet and YouTube pages that communities already aware of risk and they already only need recognition. So can you tell me particularly about the women role in vulnerable communities and why we should empower women to take control over social institutes? Because, for example, right now, I don't know why, but in Central Asia, the women role, rights is quite hot topic, and especially in vulnerable communities. Can you share your opinion about this?
Yeah. Thank you, Sadvik. So before I answer this question, I think we should recall what CBDRM aims at. So community-based disaster risk management, CBDRM, is an approach that seeks to actively and mindfully engage the communities at risk in, let's say, identifying and analyzing the risks that surround them, and formulate and implement the measures to reduce their vulnerabilities and thus enhance their capacities. So basically, CBDRM has traditionally been a grassroots approach, right? When we say that CBDRM focuses on reducing vulnerabilities and improving resilience of communities, we need to understand that it also advocates equal participation and involvement of the community members. So a gender sensitive approach in CBDRM can have, I think, an affirmative impact on the lives of women and men alike, actually. Not only does this help in strengthening women's participation in the process of decision making, but I think it can also elevate the role of women as leaders who can steer a risk reduction agenda in a community, thus changing the entire narrative of women as being vulnerable section to women being a resilient one instead. And why is this important? I think the answer to this is this discussion itself. I mean, do we ask, why is men's role in CBDRM important? Or what role do they play? Or why does their role have to be institutionalized? No, we don't. So the point is, while the significance and relevance of gender-sensitive CBDRM approach is gradually gaining acknowledgement and importance, we should not forget that many countries and communities have firm religious and cultural barriers that can result in the exclusion of women's participation. And resultantly, we end up having DRM and CBDRM or like measures which fail to recognize the existential vulnerabilities of the society that are gender biased. And I repeat, these are the vulnerabilities of the society and its structure, not women. So we have several examples all over the world where women leaders have yielded jaw-dropping results, be it now in dealing with the pandemic or sometime back in history. Actually, I think I don't even need to go any far away to cite such examples when I have the example of a bold woman like Rehma right in front of me, who in the office of Secretary General of You Inspire Alliance has been facilitating its activities in the theme of DRR and DRM since its inception. Not that institutionalizing the role and leadership of women is any yardstick to prove their skills, but it facilitates for women an equal platform to sort of voice out their opinions and get recognition for their ideas, and not just to be appreciated, but also to be appraised and improved. And I think we cannot afford missing out on the fact that many households in India and all countries across the world are run entirely by a single mother. As society is aiming for a holistic approach in dealing with hazards and risks, a gender-sensitive approach will ease the burden on the society as a whole and uplift it from underlying cracks that make it vulnerable. And I hope that has answered your question. Sadvik, you're not audible. You're muted.
You are on mute, Sadvik.
Okay, thank you, Saran. That was very powerful actually for me, because maybe some people think why we should ask such question. But for example, in some people from my country, from my region, will see, and there's a lot of stereotypes, barriers created by some religious institutions, and we have to break them because they don't understand that vulnerabilities is also created not just by the hazard itself, but the people. Mostly by the people, but built environment by such systems that are actually causing the hurt, so much things. Thank you so much for your answer. And I think I can ask the last question that I wanted from Tanmay, because for me it's very interesting to know how to discuss DRM on professional terms with people who are not in this field, how to simplify it to make it more understandable and useful for communities and civil society.
Sadvik, thank you, Sadvik, for asking me this question. Please don't angry at me because the answer for this question is very simple. Just listen. You have to just listen. Personally, I feel as we grow in the career or otherwise, we are speaking more and listening less. So DR, since everyone knows who are participating here, DRM is very, very interdisciplinary field, and the understanding of risk for those like
discipline to discipline varies, and it's very different for each and everyone. So hence, as a DRR practitioner, we need to listen to them, listen to each and everyone, and try to analyze and provide them a very relatable examples, simple and relatable examples. And last but not the least, we should avoid jargons as much as can possible. So yeah, and most importantly, we need to tone down our language, because to speak with the community or who is not from DRM, we need to communicate with their language, not our. So that will be a good connection with them. Thank you.
Thank you, because that's actually this kind of personal question. So why I'm asking, because I want to know, like, really from the expert, maybe like someone who knows better, because I really want to make this such kind of project in Kazakhstan, Central Asia. There's a lot of things that we may help to people. There was actually some recently was tragedy, and the people were killed. 2 people were killed during the mud flow in canyons in Almaty, because they just didn't know. They didn't understand maybe the knowledge and everything. So thank you so much for your answers to these speakers, and I think also thank you so much for participants for your questions, and I hope we answered them. Also, I want to share with you my opinion about the book itself, Handbook, because there were some questions that really triggered me. I want to share my screen if you don't mind. Let me see if that's mine. Can you see my presentation? Oh my God, I have to.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, so my view about the CBDRM or the Mili Juli project, because as a reader and regarding this initiative itself, I would describe myself like there were in the book on page 5. Oh my God, can you? This is. Let me just move this one here. On the book on page 5 in line 19, guys, check out if it's true. If not, if it's true, then just leave comment no cap, hashtag no cap, because that will be interesting just to trigger some viewers from YouTube and Facebook just to see what does it mean. There was written that communities themselves able to manage their risks and disasters and have done this for 100 years, but decision makers, modern people just got used to ignoring the views in relation to risks. And purpose of book is to encourage people, inspire people to just see things from different angles. And that's really inspired me. And I was sitting on my table and thinking, is there any cultural heritage that I have, for example, my nation have, that can be an example for CBDRM? And then I came across, sorry, what is it moving? Okay. And the answer, the answer was right on my kitchen table. You can see here, this is traditional Kazakh food. It's called kurt. It's very just cheesy texture, and sometimes people confuse this traditional dish with well-known chocolate Rafaela, but the taste is different, quite surprising. That's why please, if you come to Kazakhstan and if you see on the shops, don't confuse them, because you will be surprised. Maybe you will see anxiousness because of the taste of it's very salty, it's very soury. And why I want to mention that, because in ancient times this kind of food helped my nation to survive several days without water, because this of unique characteristics of that food. And also, you probably most of you probably heard that Kazakhstan and Central Asia was in the Soviet Union for 17 years, and we have a lot of camps like Gulag and so-called traitors and renegades. And one of them we have in Kazakhstan. It was especially for the traitors, the wives of the traitors and children. This was quite, dark history, and there was some story from the camp prisoner Gertruda Poites, because there were prisoners that were working on the field, and there were local people, Kazakh, ethnic Kazakh people. They were throwing the white zinc in them, and they were thinking, the prisoners were thinking that they just hateful toward them. They were pro-communist, and they hate them. But in fact, they was just understand that this kind of rocks that they threw was edible, and that actually helped them to survive. The locals were trying to help them, and this is I think, a treasure of our nation, and such symbol of helping each other, because in Kazakhstan during the Soviet time there were a lot of ethnicities moved here, deported, and this is why also this story was depicted in the film, this TV series, but only, unfortunately, in Russian. But this is about my heritage that I have, and also one cultural heritage that can be example. I saw that maybe it's yurt. It's so-called nomadic house, traditional nomadic house. It has developed several, hundreds of years, but the base form, the round shape, still unchanged, and this unique architectural, architectural structure allowed us and nomadic tribes to thrive, live in a very harsh climate in Central Asia. The winds are quite strong in Central Asia because, for example, Kazakhstan itself, it's the 9th largest country. The landscape quite, different sometimes. In the middle, we have the steppes with no trees. We have deserts, and these houses really help a lot. For example, in the summer, it's quite cold inside, surprisingly. During the winter, they windproofing, they wind resistant, and there are so many examples, I think, that come to my mind, but we don't I don't see them, and we don't see them as, for example, for many of people like me that can work as the example. And one of this recent, I think, it's cultural colonialism, which I was reading about in the beginning of year. It's when culture of colonialists was considered highest, and colonized were lowest, and it created the demonization of culture and heritage. And this traces, unfortunately, for example, Soviet Russification we have in Kazakhstan, Central Asia, are still here and felt and still affecting the people, because it was grafted into our mindset, and we were raised that way. We didn't have any, for example, way of thinking differently for many years, and still there is a lot of people thinking that, for example, Kazakh culture or any Asian culture and their heritage is just barbaric. And for me, this decade is quite it's decolonization era, and we have to constantly decolonize ourselves, decolonize our heritage, and also our minds, because there was something mentioned in the book that our heritage is a past and also can be a way of reducing our risk and help us in the future. For me, that's how I understand it, and I will share some links with you in the comments maybe of the video. So let me just finish this. I got how to finish this presentation. Sorry. Okay. And why I'm mentioning this because I think I have to advise all participants, please go to the YouTube description video, comments, find the links, download the handbook, and have your own journey. Maybe you have completely different opinion about it, and maybe you will find you will be inspired to make research about cultural heritage, about collective consciousness of community. And I think it's time, let's take an hour. I think it's time to finish our webinar at such moment, because I'm really happy to be a moderator for today. Thank you, Tanmay, Gound, Ms. Saran, Mr. Risha for such insightful talk. And thank you a lot for Choco team, Afifa, Rahma, Dahal, Garima, also dear participants. I hope that our today discussion about reinventing spirit of community-based disaster management, risk management could expand your knowledge and motivate all of us to contribute actively more into disaster risk reduction. So before we finish, just don't leave our Zoom. Don't miss our next webinar, please, colleagues. You gonna see the video of our about next webinar that will be on 24 July 2021 at the same time, at the same maybe weekday, Saturday, about GIS and drone on DRR. The speaker is gonna be Inspire Indonesia Sapien. Also inspired Nepal from Jiraj Gautam, Executive Director of Himalayan Risk Reduction. From Pakistan, we're going to have Shoaib Ahmed, and from NIAD University. And last, and our guest from Kyrgyzstan is Mr. Yerkin Saif, Research Fellow from University of Central Asia. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Looking forward to having you next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadek. You have been a wonderful
And-
moderator. And your presentation was a surprise for us, a pleasant surprise.
I'm really
Hot
happy.
chocolate soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we have a photo session together
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
with everyone that is still here? Please turn on your video. Yeah, okay, so if you're here, please turn on your video. Erkin, Garima, Bang Rio, Oki, Repol, Nitika, Amrita, Puja, Unggul, everyone, Bola. Okay.
Don't be shy.
I will take, yeah. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Rema.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe we will have a short briefing. For participants, you are free to leave us. Okay.
Maybe we can stop the stream.